All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I want to start off by congratulating everybody for almost completing this marathon. I mean, was it a marathon? I hope to have framed that well in the first. I mean, think about it. If you read this book thoughtfully, it's going to take you 15 hours. And as I'm seeing it, I think you've been listening to me for probably 10 hours. I mean, congratulations. I mean, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate your guys' kind comments. I had several emails from you guys. I feel like I've gotten to know many of you quite well, and I think you guys have gotten to know me quite well as I've been raw on these calls here with you. So I certainly appreciate the kind comments, and I love hearing how much many of you have personally and professionally grown. I mean, that's the only reward that I need for the work that I'm putting in. So thank you. I mean, that means a lot to me that you guys are experiencing some value from this and from these lessons. So your homework assignment from the last call was you had to have completed the book, Red Habit 7, and you had to watch that long 90-minute video. Now I was kind of wondering how many people are going to shoot me an email, because when you watch the video, it re-loops. Now the question is, how many times? Let's just see. Give me some fingers.
Oh my God! I thought I was crazy. I was like, "What?" I actually was watching it.
Yeah, it's like, is it different the second time? Is there is there a slight variation? No, it's the same loop.
Okay.
So how many times did it loop?
I did it 6 times. I didn't realize a lot of times.
I think it's 4. I think the number's 4. But anyways, so yes, it did loop a handful of times. So really, you only have to watch maybe 26 minutes or something like that. And we're going to watch a good chunk of it here today. But I wanted to start with this. I heard this a long time ago. I'm going to share screen. And this one isn't a video. I am your constant companion. Hang on a second. I am your constant companion. I am your greatest helper or heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I am completely at your command. Half the things you do, you might as well turn over to me, and I will be able to do them quickly, correctly. I am easily managed. You must merely be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of all great people, and alas, of all failures as well. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I am not a machine, though I work with all the precision of a machine, plus the intelligence of a human being. You may run me for a profit or turn me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? I am a habit. And I had this framed on my wall for years. I put this in a frame. I thought this was worthy of being a frame. I mean, it's such a powerful statement. I mean, be easy with me and I will destroy you. It's like, well, who is this? Is this some kind of movie or something like that? It makes no difference to me, run me for a profit or turn me for ruin. Again, keep in mind the 7 habits. I just want to reflect on the title of this book. I think the goal, as you go through the book and you study the habits and you reflect and you ask yourself how you're doing with these habits, keep in mind these are habits. And habits are hard to break. And I hope the goal for you guys as you're going through this, and some of the habits you'll be naturally strong with, other habits you'll be a little weaker with. The goal is that these become habitual and you don't have to think much of them. When things come up in your life, you'll just automatically get to a point of think win-win. You'll automatically get to the point of synergize. Let me seek, understanding. Let me hear from your point of view what you're trying to say. And maybe there's a third alternative. I mean, that's really the goal. These are habits. So if any of you are interested in this, I'm more than happy to, send it your way. But this is something I've pondered on a lot over the years. I mean, what are my habits? All right, so the first video, or the first piece of a video I want to talk about, I mean, interesting with habit 7. He's going to say this in the video. I do not know of one activity that has as great of a leverage factor in life. Leverage, how you use it to benefit in other areas, how you leverage a factor in life as habit 7. I mean, if habit 7 is done right, it's going to affect the other habits and the other parts of your life. So we're going to share screen here. We're going to get to video time. Let's see what Mr. Cup say.
Kaizen, continuous learning, forever getting better. Habit 7 is the habit that focuses on production capability. Habit 7, if done right, automatically develops the other 6 habits because it takes a high level of proactivity and of responsibility to consistently sharpen the saw. I do not know of one activity that has as great a leverage factor in life as habit 7. What do I mean by leverage? See, if you put the fulcrum in the middle and you put in 1 unit of effort here, you get out 1 unit of productivity here. If you move that fulcrum over, you can put in 1 unit of effort here and get out 100 units of productivity over there. Habit 7 moves the fulcrum over. You may only spend a few hours in an entire week, a week made up of 168 hours. And those few hours will affect the quality, the productivity, the satisfaction, the quality of relationships, the quality of decision making of every other hour. But the problem is, habit 7 lies in quadrant 2. It is not urgent. That's why most people neglect it. They do it very unsystematically. They hit and miss on it. Sometimes they get kind of imbalanced on it. They focus only in one dimension. See, basically there are 4 dimensions in life: the body, the mind, the spirit, and relationships. We call that the social, emotional side. Social is our relationship with others. Emotional is our relationship with ourselves. Those are basically the 4 dimensions of organizations as well. It has its economic side to produce the bottom line towards some mission within a certain value system. That is the spiritual side. It must also have its culture of high trust. That's the social side. In order to have empowerment in the development and use of people's talents, that's the mental side. So those are the 4 dimensions. If you study all of history and psychology and philosophy, inevitably you'll find the same 4 dimensions constantly mentioned. But all 4 need to be attended to in a consistent and regular and balanced way in order to properly sharpen the saw.
Yeah, sharpen the saw. So from the book, I'm going to read from the book. This is going to be a little bit of a longer read, but it's just going from my notes, reading the book. Habit 7 is preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have. You. It's renewing the 4 dimensions of your nature: physical, spiritual, mental, social, emotional. I mean, when you go back to habit 3, put first things first, and I was calendar sharing with you guys, you saw that it's like, and I've said this for years, people may be surprised how slowly, how long it takes me to get ready in the morning. And I've always said that, like I was not the guy who, woke up in somewhat of a panic, showered real quick, raced to work with my coffee donut or something. I mean, there's a short window in my life where that's what life looked like. But after a while, I'm like, no, I need to sharpen the saw. I need to start the day sharpening the saw. The more I'm investing in that time in the morning, the rest of the day is going to flow nice and smooth. So in my calendar, it's called renewal. It's my renewal window, and it's 2 hours per day, 6 days per week. So the 4 human needs, I love the way Covey puts it: to live, physical; to love, social, emotional; to learn, mental; and to leave a legacy. 4 L's, the 4 human needs. And it makes an argument. Every culture around the world, we all have these 4 human needs. It's like everybody's got this. So again, from the book, to do this, we must be proactive. Habit 1, taking time to sharpen the saw is definitely a quadrant 2 activity. That's why he says that's why most people neglect it, because it's not urgent. This is the single most powerful investment we can ever make in life: investing in ourselves. Again, you're the goose that lays the golden eggs. Take good care of that goose. And the only instrument we have which to deal with life and to contribute, we are the instruments of our own performance. And to be effective, we need to recognize the importance of taking time regularly to sharpen the saw in all 4 ways. The physical dimension. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I mean, this is our 7th week together. Anybody want to guess how much weight I've lost in 7 weeks?
7 pounds.
Well,
I've lost 10.
50.
10 pounds. I've got some goals with my kids that, if dad hits a certain number, I've got 10 more to go. I lose 10 pounds. There's going to be some Lego sets purchased. So I want them encouraging me. I want them cheerleaders. I want them questioning whether or not we should really have ice cream after dinner. Right? So what are the 4 L's? I saw that. To live, to love, to learn, to leave a legacy. 4 L's. So yeah, the physical dimension. I've been working on that during this hiatus. The physical dimension involves caring effectively for our physical body, eating the right kinds of foods. That can be difficult, especially for those of us on the go that eat out a lot. That can be tricky, but there's lots of restaurants popping up out there that care about your health. Just find them. Getting sufficient rest and relaxation, and exercising on a regular basis. Exercise is one of those quadrant 2 high leverage activities that most of us don't do consistently because it isn't urgent. I like this part. And because we don't do it, sooner or later we find ourselves in quadrant 1. Exercise becomes quadrant 1, dealing with the health problems and crisis that come as a natural result of our neglect. So working out for most of you is a quadrant 2 thing. Neglect it long enough, it becomes a quadrant 1 thing. I saw John Maxwell in an interview. I think he had a heart attack at the age of 52. I mean, he was doing well in many of the areas of his life, but he was on the road a lot, just neglected his health, and then is at a Christmas party and has a heart attack, and he's on the ground thinking he's going to die. Do you think health became a priority to him after that? I mean, you bet. All of a sudden, it shifts into a quadrant 1 bucket. So ideally, you want to keep that quadrant 2, but you keep it quadrant 2 if you take care of it. Take care of that goose. If you haven't been exercising, your body will undoubtedly protest this change in an uncomfortable downhill direction. You won't like it at first. You may even hate it. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. But be proactive. Do it anyways. Even if it's raining on the morning you've scheduled to jog, do it anyway. Oh, good, it's raining. I get to develop my willpower as well as my body. There's a good attitude towards it. Probably the greatest benefit you will experience from exercising will be the development of your habit 1 muscles of proactivity. That's interesting. probably the greatest benefit you will experience from exercising is the habit one muscles. He's talking that the best benefit's going to be in your brain, not in your, it's like, really? Yeah. Don't you find it builds your confidence when you do it, especially when you don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway? Of course. As you act based on the value of physical well-being instead of reacting to all the forces that keep you from exercising, your paradigm of yourself, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and your integrity will profoundly be affected. I think that's really powerful. The spiritual dimension, again, I'm going to read all four, then we're going to go back to the video. The spiritual dimension is your core, your center, your commitment to your value system. The great reformer Martin Luther is quoted as saying, "I have so much to do today, I'll need to spend another hour on my knees." To him, prayer was not a mechanical duty, but rather a source of power in releasing and multiplying his energies. That's the spiritual dimension. I see many people going through Ramadan. I'm looking at you, Mehdi. I'm hoping you probably haven't eaten, you're waiting for evening time. Again, when you exercise those spiritual muscles like that, that discipline, yeah, the multiplying energies in all other parts of your life, for sure. I fasted. Anybody here fasted? I fasted one time for 144 hours, 6 days, basically. One of the hardest things, probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. Day one, I'm craving In-N-Out Burger like crazy. I'm like, I can't wait. I'm going to be there when they open. I'm just dreaming of juicy, greasy burgers. And I committed. I'm going to be there as soon as they open up. I'm going to be there when this fast is done. And by the end of it, all I wanted to do, I survived. I did the 144 hours. I wanted to go to the gym, and I craved leafy, greeny foods. It's interesting. There was a lot of spiritual development in that fast. I mean, there's something very spiritual about fasting. Your body's craving food, and you won't give it food. You got to give it something else. The mental dimension. Continuing surveys indicate, oh, this is interesting. This bugged me. This piece bugged me from the book. Continuing surveys indicate that television is on in most homes. Now, again, it could be screen time as well, too. Some people, I don't watch TV. How much screen time do you get? How many YouTube videos you watch? And how much time are you on social media? Same kind of thing. Is on in homes some 35 to 45 hours per week. Many of you guys are slinging TV products, door-to-door retail, all this stuff. You know what I'm talking about. That's as much time as many people put into their jobs, more than most put into school. It's the most powerful socializing influence there is. And when we watch, we're subject to all the values that are being taught through it. That can powerfully influence us in a very subtle and imperceptible way. Education, continuing education, continually honing and expanding the mind is vital mental renewal. I once heard, for those people that don't read, you're no better off than those that never learned to read. You're no better off. Proactive people can figure out many, many ways to educate themselves. There's no better way to inform and expand your mind on a regular basis than to get into the habit of reading good literature. It is said that wars are won in the general's tent. Sharpening the saw in the first three dimensions, physical, spiritual, mental, is a practice I call the daily private victory, which is, again, after reading the book, I slotted that. I bought in. The daily private victory, DPV. And I commend to you the simple practice of spending 1 hour a day doing it. 1 hour a day for the rest of your life. I guess I didn't fully buy into it. I do it 6 hours, or sorry, six days per week, not 7 days. There's no other way you could spend an hour that would begin to compare with the daily private victory in terms of value and results. It will affect every decision, every relationship. It will greatly improve the quality, the effectiveness of every other hour of the day, including the depth and restfulness of your sleep. It will build the long-term physical, spiritual, and mental strength to enable you to handle difficult challenges in life. The daily private victory. And then the last of the four needs, to love, the social, emotional dimensions. The social and emotional dimensions of our lives are tied together because our emotional life is primarily, but not exclusively, developed out of and manifested in our relationships with others. So the four human needs. So let's see what Mr. Covey's got to say about our four human needs here.
Let's look at each one in turn. Under physical, we usually think about these elements of renewal: exercise, nutrition, and stress management, so that we are not crippled, paralyzed from being overstressed, overtaxed, worn out, burned out. Exercise. More and more consciousness is happening inside society about the importance of exercise. Feeling better, looking better. And it doesn't take that much time, really. More and more of the data is coming in that if it's done regularly and moderately, vigorous walking, some calisthenics, it doesn't require a heavy, intensive workout as they once thought. The principle is balance, fun, moderation, consistency, variety. In nutrition, most of us know what is right in this area, but the question is, do we have the willpower to do it? Do we have the commitment? Is it important to us? Usually when we have no problems, when it's more a matter of vanity than longevity or vitality, oftentimes it won't be important to us, or it will be important because of our vanity. But when it gets to the point where it will literally affect the quality of your life and the length of your life, many people then begin to take it seriously, but often not until there is some painful, acute manifestation. Stress, let's look at that. You've heard of other techniques on stress management: meditation, biofeedback, exercise, and so forth. I think they're good. Do you know what I think the greatest stress management idea is? Meaning, purpose, contribution. A life that turns you on, work that turns you on, a cause that turns you on. Study Hansalier's works. The importance of having meaningful projects and contributions. To never retire to leisure. To retire to projects that are meaningful, that excite you, that contribute, that add value, that make a difference. Let's look at the mental. The very fact that you would come here and really attend to this work and will be willing to participate. One classified it as like a drink from a fire hose. But it may stimulate you to get into other areas and to trigger off a great effort to keep your mind vital and alert and alive. Get back to reading. Give yourself the challenge of a book a month, then a book a week. Then learn to read conceptually and rapidly. And you can go through many books very rapidly and get the gist of it. Reading groups, discussion groups, study groups, taking classes at the university, correspondence courses, coming to seminar days like this. Anything to keep your mind vital and active and alert, challenged. See, that's all part of it. Then learn in your planning to visualize, to begin with the end in mind, to see it clearly, to use your imagination. See, all of that becomes part of this mental exercise. Spiritually, it's a very private area. People do it in their own way. But basically it means renew yourself in your value system. in what you deeply, deeply value, what you treasure, what you believe in. Work on this mission statement. Work diligently on it until it's crystallized and settled. Then go back to it. Keep looking at it. You try to make it made of principles that are timeless, see? And in some way you want to get them into your nature regularly so that you are sharpening the saw by renewing your commitment, your vows, your covenants, whatever is important and sacred to you. Get into the literature that inspires you, give you a sense of reaching on a higher level, see, and of contributing, of making a difference. What about the education of the conscience? Until it's very sensitive, extremely open, very influenceable, so that the moral sense is deep and you can instantly detect when you're going awry from it. Try to live by your conscience day in and day out, to be courageous in the hard moments. All of that is part of this spiritual sharpening the saw. As I mentioned, people do it all differently because it's so private. For myself, I have a life cycle. I get up early. I don't like getting up that early. In fact, it's miserable. But I've learned that if I can be strong in just about 3 or 4 hard moments, everything else is a piece of cake. And one of those hard moments is getting up early and getting on that life cycle and just start pedaling. I hate biking, really. But you know why I like it? Because I can read. I used to run till I messed up my knees. I really had more enjoyment in the activity itself of running. But I can read with the bike. So I have a whole library right behind my bike. I've trained myself to go through 3, 4, 5 books a week. So from 5:30 to 6:30 every morning, to me, it's the daily private victory. Now that may not fit your schedule or your approach, but think about what is it that you can do to win the private victory so that you're strong in the hard moments and you nurture yourself and develop your mind and your conscience, see, before you even encounter life, before you even encounter other people. Some people do it later in the day. The logistics is always different for different people, and the methods, the approaches.
Food for thought. I mean, part of how I've conditioned myself with that, with the physical, with the running. I mean, you know, running 30 to 45 miles per week is the goal. I mean, I turn podcasts on while I'm doing the exercise, and interesting, similar to Stephen Covey, it's like, oh, you're craving the mental. You may not want the physical piece of it, the carnage to your body, but man, I'm craving to keep learning more. And when I do those two things combined, I find that it's a great recipe for achieving success in that department.
Now what we're doing is looking at how the private victory, through this sharpening the saw, physically, mentally, spiritually, helps to produce the public victories, that is, in our relationships with others. And this is where habits 4, 5, and 6 are involved. 4, 5, and 6 is the essence of sharpening the saw in the public victory, socially. I call it the social and emotional dimension. Social means your relationship with others. Emotional means your relationship with yourself. One of the most powerful action steps you can take after today is to begin the process of rebuilding a broken relationship you care about. Particularly reach out to touch the one that tests you the most. Rebuild the one relationship you care enormously about, but which is strained, which has been wounded. Dag Hammarskjöld put it this way: it is more noble to give yourself completely to one individual than to labor diligently for the salvation of the masses. In other words, you can be very dedicated for many causes out there, worthy causes, projects, business activities, 10, 12, 14 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week, and not have a meaningful relationship with your own teenage son. And that will eat at you. You know it. It weakens your fiber, your will. What's it all about, see? What am I working so hard for? Had a friend of mine who was just beside himself because his boy was so rebellious, unappreciative. I said to him, I'm teaching empathic communication now in the course. Why don't you come in for a while? He thought he got the concept within a week, went to the boy. I would like to talk to you. There is nothing to talk about. The boy stood up and walked out. He said I about tackled him at the door. If he had only known I'd taken a course to prepare for that one visit. I said, course, he's only testing your sincerity, and what did he find out? You don't really want to understand him. You want him to shape up. He should, that whippersnapper. He knows full well what he's doing. I said, look inside. You've got to do a lot more interior work. He stayed with the course. He did the work. He came to me and he said, I'm prepared. I said, he's going to test your sincerity in every way. He can't be vulnerable to you, have his expectations aroused, and then blast it again. He sat down with his boy. I'd really like to talk. I know you think there's nothing to talk about, but it's because perhaps I haven't listened. He said, you have never listened to me. And he stood up and started walking out. And then before he got out the door, the father said, I'll tell you one thing. I'm sure sorry about the way I embarrassed you in front of your friends the other day. The boy whipped around. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? And he teared up. And my friend said to me, all the teaching you had done did not touch me like that tear. I realized this boy cares. This boy is sincere. He's vulnerable. I didn't even know he cared at all. He said, Stephen, never did I want to understand that boy as I did then. And he said, we sat and talked, and I genuinely tried to understand. The mother came in and said, time for bed. It's past midnight. And he said, Mom, we want to talk, don't we, Dad? They talked till very late. The father told me in the halls of my building the next day with tears in his eye, I found my son again. Be patient. It won't happen overnight. You may need to apologize. You may need to forgive and forget. You may need to make all kinds of different deposits over time, and even won't see any evidence for a while. You plant the Chinese bamboo tree, and for 4 years you see nothing. Nothing. All the growth goes under the ground, and you're working diligently to optimize the growing conditions. You see nothing. 4 years. Eventually a little bulb and a little shoot, and that's it. 4 years. On the 5th year, the Chinese bamboo tree grows 80 feet. All the growth goes this way. So to cultivate that relationship, to think win-win, to empathically listen. Same thing would pertain to a relationship, say, with your business partner, a key associate, a key employee. If there is a sense of enmity there, that enmity will spread out and affect other things. And it will take more nobility of character to do whatever is necessary to rebuild that one. And you know what the interesting thing is? If you rebuild the one, it affects the many. The key to the 99 is the one, because every one of the 99 is a one. The key to the many is the one. Why? Because what you have to do to develop and educate and discipline your character affects everything that you do in your life. So it has exponential leveraging capacity as well in relationships to nurture your emotional well springs. So important.
All right. I'm going to introduce a new book, okay? And when I was putting this together, I'm like, I gotta put this in here. So Covey wrote a follow-up. This is a thick sucker, okay? His follow-up to the 7 Habits is a book called The 8th Habit, From Effectiveness to Greatness. So he wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, became a bestseller. I'm not sure how many millions of copies were produced, and his follow-up, again, just think of the title, From Effectiveness. Now that you have the 7 habits, let's get you to level up from effectiveness to greatness with the 7 habits. Okay, that's the book. Comes with a DVD player, lots of great videos, all this stuff. We could do we could do 10 more hours if you want on the 8th habit. I'm going to incorporate it here into habit 7. I want to read from this book, okay? This is interesting. So many of our modern management practices come from the industrial age. Okay, Robert Kiyosaki talks about this as well too in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that our current educational system we have today comes from the industrial age. You know, the bells going on in schools, all this stuff. He says, well, corporate America is real similar to what it was like working in the factories way back hundreds of years ago. The job satisfaction is comparable between the two. He says, it gave us belief that you have to control and manage people. It gave us our view of accounting. Anybody that studied accounting knows this to be true, and this is somewhat of a disgusting statement. It makes people an expense and machines assets. Anybody that, again, knows accounting and balance sheets, you know this to be a true statement. That machines, again, are assets. Your fleet, your vehicles are assets in your company, and your employees are liabilities. On a P&L statement, you know, they're expenses. I mean, some people are asking, how is the stock market still doing so well in this crazy time that we're seeing? I mean, again, we saw this in 2008 as companies were letting people go. Record profits were happening because they were slimming expenses. They were cutting employees, right? So again, just think about that. So many of our modern management practices come from the Industrial Revolution. He says people have 6 choices to make in the workforce, okay? 6 choices in the workforce. I'm going to share a screen again. You guys are getting the impression I like Excel spreadsheets, and I do. Habit 8, effectiveness to greatness. So many of us can relate to this. Employees can rebel or quit. I mean, we see this happen. Ah, man, I'm out of here, turnover. There's another choice of malicious obedience. You keep moving up the scale to willing compliance. Again, some of you are probably laughing as you're going through this. Like, I've been every one of these, you know, in my current work. Cheerful cooperation. Well, now we're starting to get into some positive territory here. Heartfelt commitment. Well, that sounds awesome. I want a team of employees with heartfelt commitment all the way to creative excitement. 6 choices in the workplace. Okay, you with me? The question is, how do we get our teams, how do we get our people to heartfelt commitment and creative excitement? That's the question. And here's his answer. Here's the book summed up, in my opinion. The solution is try to create a whole person in a whole job. Satisfy, in other words, satisfy the 4 dimensions of a human being: the body, mind, heart, and spirit. He says in most organizations, I want you guys to think about this because most of you haven't studied this book. Most companies, there's only one of your 4 needs being met. What do you think it is? again, we covered this, to learn, to love, to live, and to leave a legacy. Which need is being met with most jobs that you've had? Every job.
Live.
Yeah, to live. You get paid. They give you money. So my physical needs are being met with the job. They're giving me money, that gives me food, clothing, shelter, all that stuff. Are you learning anything? Not really. I'm doing the same boring thing day after day. Are you making a difference? Are you leaving some kind of legacy? No, not at all. In fact, I don't even believe in the mission of this company. Wow, so you're not growing spiritually, you're not growing mentally, socially, maybe not so much. So this book I really took to heart. I mean, again, I read this shortly after the 7 Habits, and I'm like, you know, and I happen to be in a business that's a very difficult business with high turnover. Keeping people around is not exactly the easiest thing I've ever done in a commission sales environment. But I'm like, okay, well, Covey says the companies in the 21st century that are going to go on to do extraordinary things are going to break away from the Industrial Revolution and take care of their employees where they satisfy all 4 human needs. Gee, really? So I started thinking about it. I'm like, okay, physical, mental, social, spiritual. Okay, well, the social and emotional side, I think we got that on lockdown. That was my first thought. I'm like, you know what? I think we get pretty good grades in the social emotional department. We put together a team night. Everybody shows up. There's chatter. There's laughter. There's all this good stuff. And every office I know of is doing this weekly, minimum of 1 time per week. Some are doing 2, 3, 4, 5 times per week. Okay, so socially, I think that we're giving our team that. Okay, I like that. A lot of companies don't even do that. A lot of companies don't take care of the social, emotional need. You see the clock running, 5 o'clock, peace, I'm out of here, and they want nothing to do with their fellow coworkers. That doesn't seem to be the case in our particular business. Okay, so that one I think we're doing pretty well. Could we improve on it? Are there things we can improve on it? Sure, there always is. Again, back to synergy. I was talking about this last week. You know, synergize. Let's get our core leaders together and let's plan through the week. Well, as we plan through the week, let's talk about team night. Let's talk about the social and emotional needs of our people, and let's put a cool event on the calendar. Okay, physical. Well, aside from money, well, actually, maybe I shouldn't even skip over money. How do I put more money in people's pockets? Maybe let's go there. How do I give people more of a physical need being met with my business? Well, I want to put more money in their jeans. That's always a great goal. Should be a goal of anybody in a commission sales environment. You got to put more money in your people's pockets. But that's only one side of physical. Well, do I want my people to be healthy? Well, yeah, I do. So what can I do to grow the physical needs? And I've over the years I've seen this. I've seen you know, that TV show The Biggest Loser, where, you know, it sounds, first time I heard that, Biggest Loser, what kind of awful TV show? No, Jamie, whoever loses the most weight. I'm like, oh, I see, The Biggest Loser, biggest, or whatever, the biggest fraction of their baseline weight. I've seen offices do that, and it's been a very good experience from what I've seen, where everybody, the whole office is like, and those that want to participate, you know, if somebody doesn't want to step on a scale, no sweat. I mean, you can't pressure somebody into doing that. But you got the whole office into physical health and eating the right food and exercise. How could that be a bad part of a company culture? If everybody in the company is getting fit, feeling good, looking good, how could that possibly be bad? But the one go-to that I've always done is, and I've done this every Monday night for I don't know how many years, we just call it sports night. So it's like team night, except team night typically is calories added on, some chicken wings, or, you know, be creative, some French fries. Well, sports night is all about a calorie burn. And you can find, I mean, we would play outdoor basketball, we'd play outdoor soccer, we'd play indoor basketball. I mean, hey, be creative. and I've said this for years, the team that sweats together builds together. I love sweating with the team. Great team activity. Okay, so I'm meeting social needs. Okay, I'm meeting physical needs. Okay, my goal is to create a whole person and a whole job. Okay, what about mental needs? What about mental needs? So I started really thinking through that. Well, how do I create an environment where people are growing mentally? They're getting smarter because of their opportunity of working here. Well, there's a good challenge. And the go-tos that I came up is, book clubs. You guys are in the process of doing a book club. Hopefully you feel a little smarter going through this process, listening to Stephen Covey reading his book. I put a lot of pressure on myself as the owner to offer rich teachings, rich lectures. I put a lot of pressure on the owners to listen, if you're on stage and you got a chance to run a morning meeting, make it awesome. Make it awesome. I mean, Grant Cardone, go to Facebook or Instagram, and he videotapes his morning meetings, his staff meetings. You can see he's put some thought into these meetings as he's addressing his staff. Ken Blanchard, we talked about him earlier on. He has staff meetings every day addressing the whole staff. And they're well thought through, but you're offering value to your people. You're offering mental sharpness to your people, so pressure on owners to deliver. If you're a team leader running a crew, that is your morning meeting. You are running a morning meeting. It's not just an owner thing. This is a leader thing. Anybody that's got people that they're influencing, you've got a meeting every day. Make it a good one. And network. We added this to our calendar. We added Friday was a networking call, we called it. And we just introduce great speakers to our reps in the office. You prep them in advance. Here's the audience. Here's what we're talking about. Here's what we want to do. And, you get some great speakers on calls. I mean, again, you're offering mental education. So again, book clubs, great lectures, great networking. Okay, awesome. People are getting smarter because they're working here. Great. So I'm appealing to their mental needs, physical needs. Our sports nights are going great. I mean, sometimes we play basketball till 10 o'clock at night. I mean, we have to kick people out of the gym. Hey, something good is going on when you're doing that. And social, emotional, yeah, we're on it. All right, then spiritual. So then I struggle with this. I'm like, spiritual? How can this company have spiritual growth? What does that mean? Do I bring people to church with me? I mean, that doesn't necessarily seem right. If somebody has a different faith, I mean, I don't want this to get weird and people are pushing each other's faith on each other. So how can we spiritually grow from this experience working here? So, I mean, this one really stumped me. And so I thought about this long and hard, and I'm like, you know what? Regardless of somebody's religion, I think everybody will buy in to service. Service. I mean, in every city across America, in every city in Canada, there are people in need. There's no shortage of people on this planet that you can serve. There's no shortage. So, okay, so serve. So let's serve the local community. So I remember I had this light bulb goes on. This is back in around 2002, I think this was. It was right before Christmas, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to find a family that was just in need, and I wanted to do something nice to help them from my office, from the reps I'm working with, to this family. We're calling around, myself and the administrative team, to local churches and nonprofits. Imagine the phone call you're getting. You're like, hey, this is Jamie calling from a little marketing company called Tag, and we're looking for a family that might be hurting right now, and our company, our people, really want to come through and help out. We got hung up on so many times I couldn't believe it. I was a little shocked that most people like, nah. I'm like, what do you mean nah? You don't have anybody, you don't know. I mean, you're a local church. There must be somebody that's hurting in your congregation. No, we don't want to give out that information. It's private. And again, I'm shocked. But I understood the law of averages. If the field has taught me anything, you just on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. Finally, I called the Boys and Girls Club of Venice. Armando Diaz picks up the call. And Armando Diaz like, oh, what a blessing. Of course, Jamie, of course. Let me get back to you. Let me do a little research. Gets back to us, says, Jamie, we've got 3 families in need. I'm giving you kind of a longer story, but just check this out. See how this thing played out. One of the families, as he came back, said, listen, I got this one family in particular. I'll spare you the details on the other 2, but I got this one family in particular that young family, mom, dad, 2 younger kids, and the father passed away this summer. And if that's not bad enough that the father passed away, leaving 2 young kids, the mother is struggling financially to take care of this family, and they don't even have enough money to buy a Christmas tree. Okay, so I gather this data. I take it back into a morning meeting with the team. I say to the team, I'm like, guys, here's the deal. I want to do something nice as an organization to help out the local community. And let me give you some specifics on the local community that I want to help out. And I gave the bios of these 3 families. The last one in particular was the tearjerker, like, oh my goodness, how difficult for that family. I said, for every dollar you donate, I'll match you dollar for dollar. I know you guys work hard. I know you're on commission. And listen, if you want to give $5, I'll match and give $5. You know, you want to up the ante, give just whatever money you personally give, I will match you dollar for dollar. Well, little did I realize that the reps were going to donate $2,400. So I matched $2,400. So now we have $4,800, right? We go to Target, we go to Walmart to go buy stuff. Again, we knew the ages of the kids, we knew the sizes of clothing and all this stuff. And we made arrangements with the Boys and Girls Club to show up on December 23rd. I'll never forget. It was December 23rd. So I think it was like a Friday night or something like that. And we were to show up at these houses. First one at 6 o'clock, second one 6:30, last one 7 o'clock. So we show up at the house. Imagine 30 people all showing up in a 700 square foot apartment. Okay, 30 people showing up. But they were home, they were waiting for us. I remember this, I'll never forget this woman. I love this woman. We knock on the door. She knows that the Boys and Girls Club's providing something. Somebody's coming to our house. We knock on the door. She's surprised to see 30 people at the door. We say, hello, you know, Merry Christmas. And hey, little kids, you know, we got something for you. She's like, you guys come on into my apartment. We jam into her apartment. She's crying. The kids are crying. Now, we're not talking about just like Christmas. Again, we had $4,800. We showed up with like PlayStation. We showed up with like a $1,000 gift card for Target. So, you know, go on a shopping spree. We showed up with basketballs. I would have liked that Christmas. You know, like show up at my house, give me that stuff, and it's a Merry, Merry Christmas. But it was unbelievable. We sang Christmas carols at that house. Like, and she didn't want us to leave. She wanted to cook for us, give us cookies. And so, you know, it's interesting. I mean, everybody was brought to tears. Everybody was brought to tears. We go back to the office like it was the next Monday. And I'm like, hey guys, how was the experience? You know, I mean, I already knew it was an unbelievable. I'm like, you know, what did you think? And they were like, Jamie, that was awesome. Like, we got to do that again. We can't just do that at Christmas. This should be like a recurring thing that we do. I mean, next thing you know, the Boys and Girls Club contacts me and says, hey, we want to meet with you. And I was like, oh, did we do something wrong? Did we take pictures and put them on Facebook? Maybe we shouldn't have did that or something like that. You know, I don't know. And they said, we want you to become a board member. We want companies like yours continuously doing this. I'm like, oh, funny. We just said the same thing. We want to keep doing it. And we made it a monthly event. Now, not just showering people, but the first event was our staff would just show up at the Boys and Girls Club on a particular day of the week and just help kids with homework. Girls matched up with girls, boys matched up with boys, divide and conquer, and we're just helping kids do their homework. We did another event where we're going to help kids put resumes together. And what are important things that employers look for in a resume? I thought my guys are skilled in that department. They all look at resumes. We can add value here. Oh, you know what? You know what else we're good at? We're really good at sales. Maybe we could teach these guys sales skills. We had a super sale one time where we solicited the local businesses to make donations, and then we just sold all those donations, adult and child matching up, hustling on the street, just hustling merchandise. We made $4,000 in that day, right? And so that it was unbelievable. There's no doubt about it. That spiritual muscle was full in effect. I have to believe that spiritual muscle was a huge part of retention. It was a huge part of attraction for people. And I really felt like I created an environment where all four human needs were being met as a new person joining the business: physical, social, emotional, mental, and spiritual. I'm telling you, the sharpen the saw, the habit of sharpening the saw, as you read in Habit 7, and that daily private victory, powerful, yes. Implement that into a company culture, and you are a complete winner. You're offering something that, I mean, single-digit percentage companies are doing. Most companies aren't doing that stuff. So you want to become the best place to work in your city? I'm telling you, you got your secret sauce. Effectiveness to greatness is empowering your people in a culture where all four human needs are being met. Okay, you guys with me on that? Okay, habit 8. All right, I'm going to go through, I asked you guys for some questions, and I got them. I got questions, and I wanted to just and thank you. Some of these, the last one I'll do is going to be really long, but I'm going to do my best for some Q&A here. Somebody here is smiling. You know it's you with a really long question. So I got one question per habit. I just kind of narrowed it down to one question per habit, and I'll try my best with this. So habit 1. So Chris, so I'm going to mention 6 names, and the last one I'm going to say anonymous, and I'll tell you why after. So Chris said, I found this book in your lecture to be very eye-opening, probably, and again, this is a habit 1 question. Probably the most eye-opening thing for me was to become aware that I lacked habit 1. My mood and motivation has been dependent on people and the environment around me. I want to own more of myself. Boy, there's some of Covey's words coming out. That's what he said. I want to own more of myself. Do you have any suggestion for breaking the old paradigm and welcoming in the new? And I just want to say this. I mean, I always believe that when you become self-aware, you're already over 50% of the way there. It's when you lack awareness that it's like, man, you're in for a long ride here, man. You're not even aware. But if you're aware, so the fact that you're aware, the fact that you said what you said, I want to own more of myself, the fact that you're recognizing maybe your mood is dependent on variables around you. Like I've always said to people, you know, in our business, listen, you ring the bell before you ever hit the field. You don't hit the field and then ring the bell. A proactive decision is made before you encounter your customers, and you've already decided on the front end you're going to have a great attitude no matter what curveball's thrown your way. That's the habit of being proactive. You're ringing the bell in advance before you ever hit the field and execute. So it seems like you discovered a habit to value. I would just say this, write it down. I mean, I gave you kind of my tips in my calendar, back to habit 3, putting first things first. I have a monthly one-on-one with me the first Sunday of the month, every month, 12 times per year for almost 20 years now. Hey, Jamie, how you doing? Hey, same old same. You getting any better? Let's look at our values. Like, let's write these values down. I mean, you write down the value of being proactive. I want to own more of my, that could be the clarifying statement. Be proactive, own more of myself. Check in on yourself. That whole, check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's what you're doing. You're checking in on yourself. But again, I look at it like you're over 50% of the way there already. So well done, Chris. All right, I have a 2 question from Diane. How do you create the time? I thought, again, I just tried picking one question out of each habit. This one just really caught my attention. How do you create the time to stop the noise, slow down, and make time for yourself to think through things like your values and your personal mission statement? First of all, has everybody written a personal mission statement? I hope so after going through, right? Personal mission, empowering, right? Well, what's the answer, right? So, and we all know too, I mean, I already see it coming. We're going to be getting to work here soon. We're entering the new dawn of a new day. And it's not going to be the post-coronavirus. Listen, it's going to be living life with the coronavirus around us, and things are going to be different. But we're all going to get busy. We're going to get really busy again. A lot of us have enjoyed this hiatus. Just a tool that was suggested to me almost 30 years ago. Hey, Jamie, have you ever written in a journal? No, man. I don't. Are you talking like a diary? No, I don't have a diary. Dear diary. No, I just, for whatever reason, my initial gut was like, no, you should try it sometime. Like same with the monthly one-on-one, monthly, and ideally more than monthly. Maybe I'm just getting lazy in my old age with it. I don't know. But monthly, I want time with my journal. And my journal entries usually start off, Jamie, what's on your mind? And now, if I've got this journal, and I just bought a new one, I'm on volume whatever it is right now, but I've got a stack of journals, which one day my kids will get, and they'll get to see just how dysfunctional their dad really has been over the years. But this new journal, I mean, when I'm there, when I'm in it, I can't help but pause. It forces me to pause. So if you're not in the habit of having a journal, I know there's several people that have it. Tedford Peak is a pretty masculine guy. He calls it a gurnal. It's a guy's journal. He keeps his gurnal going on. So write a journal, get some reflection, get some thoughts. If you've never done it before, you may be shocked at how therapeutic it is, because your journal might be the only person, I'll use the word person, that you can be completely authentic and honest with. Hopefully you've got friends in your life you can do that with too, but a lot of us put on a front and, how you doing? Oh, great. Come on, how you really doing? Oh man, I'm a mess. I mean, can you say that with anybody? Can you say you're a hot mess? If you can't, you need a journal, because you are a hot mess, as am I. Let's get to the root of that hot mess. What's on your mind? Big fan. If you want to stop the noise, if you want to slow down, get yourself a journal. All right. Habit 3 question came from Jenny. Your values will be exposed through your daily decisions. Somebody took good notes. Your values will be exposed through your daily decisions. That hit home to me. Family is important to me, especially my mother and father. I know one day that I want to be married with children, and family will matter to me just as much, if not more. When I look at my time and my calendar, I find most of my time is going towards work, making money, etc., not family. How do you look at this prioritization? That's a really insightful question. You know, and I remember this well, because my parents observed in me when I first started my business career. Whoa, our son is he's his work has become his new obsession. His work has become his it's taken up so much of his time. They asked me about it. And it's funny, I remember having this conversation that, you know, listen, family is really important to me. You guys obviously are really important to me. And that's why I want to work really hard. And that's why I want to get things set up for my future family, you know, and for you guys. And that was met with a really warm reception. I have found so many people that maybe get pressure from loved ones on like, hey, you don't, you know, you're working too hard. You don't see us enough. I have found a lot of people having that kind of dialogue with their parents on, listen, family is so important to me, which is why I work so hard. Again, I'm just reading Jenny's questions here, or reading the context of it. I want to be married. I want to have children. And family will matter to me just as much, if not more, when these little guys are mine. Well, sure. So if you're expressing to your family why you're putting in the work, that the motivation is for family, there's a really high chance you're going to get met with a lot of support. I'll spare you the guy's name, but somebody you guys all know, his grandparents were having a 50th anniversary, and he wasn't going to go. He had some work stuff. And his parents were giving him a hard time. His parents weren't entrepreneurs. They didn't run a business, but the grandparents did. And so, trying to not to say his name because I didn't ask for his permission, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling you. He calls his grandma and says, Grandma, I don't think I can make it. And she goes, why? You know, I'd like to see you there. Well, it works. She goes, hey, listen, I totally understand. You're working hard to take care of your family. You're working hard for your future children, your grandchildren. I do not want to see you at the 50-year family or 50-year anniversary. Like the family, the grandparents got it. So to me, that's communication. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. That's just really good communication happening right there. And I have to pull this up too. Something you may want to Google on your own. I've always found this study to be super interesting. If you Google Dr. Edward Banfield Harvard study, there's a mouthful. Dr. Edward Banfield Harvard study. Just going to read you this. After more than 50 years, this wasn't a short study. He wanted a couple generations. This wasn't going to be unique to baby boomers or millennials. This is 50 years of study. Concluded that long-term perspective is the most accurate single predictor of upward social and economic mobility in America. Long-term perspective turns out to be more important than family background, education, race, intelligence, connections, or virtually any other single factor in determining your success in life and at work. So just knowing that if you've got long-term perspective in your mind, again, when I started, I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, but I knew I was going to be married with kids. And I knew that was going to be really important. And that was the motivation. The sacrifice today, sacrifice is a key part of any successful equation. And those unwilling to sacrifice, unfortunately, you're just not going to see the fruits. I've heard this before too, just on this. When motivation is lacking, maybe you're just not motivated to work hard, or you're questioning the priorities, you know, that's when discipline takes over. Here's what Covey says about that. He says, the opposite of discipline and the commitment that inspires sacrifice is indulgence. Sacrificing what matters most in life for the pleasure or thrill of the moment. Only the disciplined are truly free. The undisciplined are slaves to moods, appetites, and passions. The successful person has formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. Successful people don't like doing them either necessarily, but their dislike is subordinated by the strength of their purpose. So I hope that answers your question. Long answer. All right, Alice asks, or sorry, take that back. That's habit 5. Habit 4, Anthony. We deal with a lot of win-lose type of people. You guys agree, disagree? Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're raised in a win-lose world. I mean, so I think most people have a very strong script in win-lose. In a situation where you create a solid win-win, but the other person is too stubborn and passionate that they must win and you must lose, how does one move forward in this scenario? In their mind, win-win, no deal isn't an option either. It's all win-lose. Generally, the strong D types. Is that true? These strong D types? Some of you are smiling. Some of you are the strong D types. I mean, I would just say this. It kind of is I find that the 3 public victories, habit 4, 5, 6, they're all intertwined a lot. So I think the answer to that habit 4 question is a habit 5 answer. Like, I think the question of, this is a really insightful question, is it important for you to have a win-win? Like, is that important for you? Why or why not? I'm just curious. Seek first to understand. No, that's not important to me. As long as I win, I don't really care. Really? Why? Why doesn't it matter to you on how the other person is? If you're always going for the win and you're not a win-win person, aren't you really kind of the one sale pony here? Like, you're not going to have recurring business. You're not going to be working with people time and time and time again if you're not thinking about them winning, don't you think? I mean, to me, the answer on how to get people onto that win-win mentality is just ask them if it's important. I mean, most people I don't think of, they haven't really pondered that. I haven't really thought about when I brought up the landlord situation, I got a lot of feedback from that. A lot of people like, dude, I didn't even think about that. When the coronavirus happened, calling the landlord, most people called the landlord asking for free rent or can I just not pay? That's think win. Well, think win-win is, hey, listen, you got bills you got to pay too. You got to pay a bank note. Well, you know, I want to make sure you win in this scenario. You know, is it important to, you know, to me, that's the thoughtfulness, the thought-provoking questions that come from habit 5, I think are going to help you in habit 4. All right, here's the habit 5 question from Alice. Alice says, one thing I notice that I see someone doesn't treat others well, that behavior will even withdraw my emotional bank account, even though they don't even realize or notice. What would be a good way to let them be aware of that? Okay, so seek first to understand, then to be understood. So Alice is noticing some people treat people poorly, and then she just kind of wants to withdraw, like my emotional bank account's withdrawn. You know, how do you have a conversation to let them even be aware of that? I couldn't help but think when I read that question, Alice, whether you know this or not, I am or at least I used to be before coronavirus, I was a Little League baseball coach, okay, of the Kansas City Royals in the Laguna Niguel Little League. And there was a time, Tony, another coach from another team, first time I had met him, opposing coach, he was talking with his son on the field and was getting into a heated discussion with his son. We're talking about maybe an 8-year-old, and picked his son up by the arm, like kind of like the underarm, picked him up and carried him over past the third baseline where he could have a private one-on-one. But me and all the other parents saw this man. I mean, some could have gone as far to say he abused the child. I wouldn't say he abused the child, but nobody agreed with what he did. And I remember it heated me. It heated me to the point, man, I don't like this guy. Right off the bat, I just like, that doesn't belong anywhere with kids. That doesn't belong with adults, and it doesn't belong with animals. You just don't do that. And I wanted to talk with him at some point in time. It's funny, when I had a chance to finally talk with him a few days later, I'm like, hey, how's coaching going? Oh yeah, going really good. I'm like, man, you really take this coaching thing seriously. Like, you want to win, don't you? That's all I said. I'm just kind of priming the pump. I didn't even know where the convo was going to go. He says, yeah, sometimes I take it too far and I just want to win. And sometimes I'm too tough on the kids. And I'm thinking, man, thank goodness. I don't know if you caught this in my last lesson, but I said, I'm confident that when people feel better, they'll do better, they'll self-correct. Just by having that dialogue without throwing judgment at them and semi-judgment, like, hey, you really want to win. Like, I noticed, I've been seeing you really want to win. And he brought it up. He's self-correcting. I'm just the sounding board where he's throwing all this stuff and he's too hard on some of the kids, too hard on his own son. I mean, people will self-correct. There's a book I read. It's a great kids raising book, but it's great for adults too. Talk so your children will listen. Here's the name of the book. Talk so your children will listen, and listen so your children will talk. But if you get people talking, you get another adult talking, I'm just confident they'll self-correct without you having to correct them, Alice. If you're curious, right, I think it's more of a curiosity, and you just open up that dialogue, and you seek first to understand. Again, you really like to win. Like, I wanted to have a Tiger Woods' dad type of convo with them, like, maybe you're taking this too far. But I didn't have to say that. He already said it. It was self-correcting. I'm a big fan of self-correction, self-management. Like, give people the benefit of the doubt. I mean, we're humans, for crying out loud. We're smart. Like, people are smart. I mean, give them a chance to self-correct. Habit 6 question. From David, how do you synergize with teammates that don't have a lot to contribute yet? Now, I'm assuming you're talking about new guys. I assume you're talking about new guys. Well, it's a great question, and I'm a big fan. I mean, I've been doing this for years. I always invite interviews to come in to see the morning atmosphere. I've always liked that. Like, I want you to see how we engage and interact with each other. And I think what's really cool is if you're having some kind of team night environment and you're inviting new people that aren't necessarily part of your synergistic inner circle yet, but if they're observing you having synergistic conversations with others, other leaders that you do synergize with, a couple things are going to happen. One, that should turn them on. That should be a recruiting tool. Number two is you're giving them the chance to see the blueprints of what they can expect as their skills and experience gain traction, that this is what it's going to look like. That yes, you have a voice, you contribute, and any chance you get to showcase synergy is nothing but a positive thing, in my opinion. All right, I'm going to get to the last question. This is from Anonymous. Now, this was insightful, and this is risky. It's a risky question. Ready for a long question? Here comes a long question. I want to read the whole thing. I could have shortened the question, but there's a lot of context to it. How would someone who does not believe in God, or believes in a different God, or believes in many gods, or who cannot make up his mind, or believes there is no God, reconcile the fact with the concept taught in these great books? Covey mentioned, I believe the correct principles are natural laws, and that God, the creator, the father of all of us, is the source of all of them. I believe that there are parts of human nature that cannot be reached by either legislation or education, but require God. For someone who doesn't believe or believes in something else, this can be hard to swallow and even disheartening, especially if he agrees with all that was mentioned in the first 330 pages. Furthermore, this is not the only book that mentions it. In the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, John Maxwell talks about we add value to others when we do things that God values, in the law of addition. And although he said he said you can skip this, he said that this is a non-negotiable for him. So if this is skipped, you're skipping part of the message. I have heard advices ranging from just convert to take the fruit of this message, just not the God part, which the authors consider the root. I'm curious, what is your perspective on this? Again, long question, risky. And I guess just a personal answer that comes along with this. I mean, I grew up quote unquote Catholic, and I say quote unquote. I went to church on Christmas and Easter, and I went to a elementary school, Catholic school. So technically I was Catholic. I was baptized. It wasn't my choice. I was a baby. I didn't choose to be baptized. I was sprinkled some water on and considered baptized. And I didn't really think much of it. I didn't really have much spiritual roots, although my parents were big into service. And I really appreciate it. They were part of JCs, JSATs. They're always serving the community, and I loved that about my parents. Just they weren't big into religion. So I can relate to what you're talking about, because I first started reading this kind of literature at the age of 19, and it was Zig Ziglar. And I know it is. Zig Ziglar's referencing God a lot. You know, from Yazoo, Mississippi, Zig Ziglar. He's got a southern accent. He's talking about God. And then Tony Robbins. I started, digesting Tony Robbins. And that dude certainly talks a lot about your spiritual being. So I was curious. I'm going to come back to a Habit 5 answer. I was really curious. And I just wanted to know more, because I wasn't really set in I wasn't religious, but I was curious to know more. I ended up becoming a Christian at the age of 28. So think about that. From 19 first being introduced to 28 is 9 years of curiosity. And I just recommend a high dose of curiosity, kind of like a Habit 6 kind of thing. Like, Vera told me about this. I think I might have talked to you guys about this particular story, but this really intrigued me. Vera was lucky enough to go to a Stephen Covey seminar that was taught by Stephen Covey. Like, man, I wish I got the invite, but I wasn't invited. And so a small group, maybe 60 people, part of your tuition fees is you got a one-on-one with Stephen Covey. And I knew this before she had the seminar. So I knew the day she was at the seminar. As soon as it was done, I called her. I'm like, how was it? You had a one-on-one with the man. You had a one-on-one with Stephen Covey. I'm like, what'd you get out of it? She goes, Jamie, it's really odd. I think Vera, that's her introduction to everything. Like, it's really odd. She thinks, she's thinking about stuff. She says that, like, the one piece of advice Stephen Covey would give you is to go deeper in your faith, whatever your faith was. He really believed that all the areas of your life really hinged on your spiritual being. That he believes that your spiritual being, your spiritual being having a human experience. And that really sat with Vera. And then it sat with me, because if that was me, I don't think he says this in the book, but Stephen Covey was Mormon. Okay, Stephen Covey was Mormon. I wouldn't help but have a high level of curiosity for a guy as smart as Stephen Covey. I mean, are you going to meet a smarter human being in your life than Stephen Covey? Probably not. I mean, the dude is an intellect. He taught at Harvard before this book. I mean, if he said that to me, I wouldn't help but be like, I mean, aren't you Mormon? I think I would ask that. And then I would ask him why. And I've never had the chance to ask him, but I'd be willing to bet I'd get a really good answer. I mean, curiosity is the root of learning. It really is. So, I don't know, again, it certainly was for me. I really want to say a lot of these authors really inspired me to go deeper in my faith. My attitude working with people, I take the John Wooden attitude. John Wooden, the Wizard of Westwood, I've read so many of his books. I mean, he said, he'd tell all of his players, drink deeply from good books. That was a quote of his. Drink deeply from good books. That if you're Muslim, you drink deeply in the Quran. If you're Jewish, you spend time in the synagogue. If you're Christian, you read the Bible. He just encouraged, he didn't push his faith on anybody. He respected everybody's faith. He just said, go deeper. It's going to help you in this game, the game of life and the game of basketball. Again, guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Before Kareem Abdul-Jabbar met Coach Wooden, his name was Lou Alcindor. Lou Alcindor took that advice to heart and went deeply into the Quran, changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and loved John Wooden as a coach, as a friend, as a mentor. So I'm a big fan of that. I take that approach too. Like, just drink deeply from good books. Whatever that good book may be, drink deeply, ask good questions, ask other people. Curiosity. I took a guy to a John Maxwell seminar one time. At the end of the seminar, John Maxwell says, okay, seminar's done, 8 hours done. Hey, listen, if any of you are curious of how I came to my faith, stick around for 3 minutes after, and I'd like to share with you. Well, we're in a jam-packed auditorium. You can't escape in 3 minutes. I'm like, how creative, Mr. Maxwell, how creative you are. And he gives his testimony of faith and offered people the John Maxwell Bible for anybody that wanted to learn more. And one of the guys I was with, after the seminar, we're driving, and I'm like, hey, how was it? And he was just totally offended. And unfortunately, everything he learned at the seminar for 8 hours was almost flushed down the toilet because he found his faith testimonial to be offensive, and unfortunately couldn't take out of that seminar what was available. So I certainly hope that doesn't happen in the 7 Habits. I hope that doesn't happen. I mean, there's so much rich content, I think, for this anonymous individual that maybe a tell to, like, again, like if I were to meet Stephen Covey, wouldn't I have a few questions? Like, you're a smart guy. Tony Robbins, I mean, again, the list goes on and on. Gary Paulson, his Jewish faith. I mean, why not ask people their questions about this stuff, considering it's so wildly important? And again, Stephen Covey said, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. So anyway, those are my answers, long answers. Again, I want to thank you guys for your participation in this marathon of 10 hours of listening and reading the book. I may do another book in the future. Depending on, people's appetites. If I were to do another book in the future, How to Win Friends and Influence People is probably the one I would suggest. Again, 7 Habits, unbelievable book. How to Win Friends, Influence People. And I'd probably start off with the knockoff version, How to Lose Friends and Alienate People. This is a really funny read. It's like, okay, so you do the opposite of this, you should be okay. But this is a funny book, How to Lose Friends and Alienate People. I'm in a current study group right now. Talk about a fun group of people. Gary Paulson, Ken Goodnick, and 8 or 9 young consultants, or should I say consultants with young children. And we're going through this book together, Self-Esteem, Raising Your Kids with Self-Esteem. And listening to Gary Paulson, maybe we should record those and send them out. I mean, unbelievable stuff, how to raise children with great self-esteem. So we may do another book, in the future, and maybe I'll have the same audience, maybe not. But send me an email. I'd love to get an email. I'd love feedback. Feedback is the fuel of champions. So I'd love to hear how you think I could improve as a presenter, or how to shorten things up, or, whatever your take would be. I'd love to hear back from you. And I hope that we're all ready to take on this new world we're entering. Personally, I'm looking forward to it. There will be some things that are going to be uncomfortable that I won't like. I'm not going to like wearing masks in public. But if that's what we have to do, I'll get used to it. It's like getting used to wearing glasses. I'll get used to it. I'll get used to learning how to read people's eyes. If I can't read their lips. I was at Wells Fargo the other day. Girl had a mask on, and now there's a piece of plexiglass too. And I couldn't understand anything she was saying. And I'm like, interesting. I had to read her eyes. I couldn't read her lips. I'm like, oh, this is a new skill I've never had before. I need to read her eyes. Communicate with the eyes. I'm like, oh, so again, I'm looking forward to the new muscles that we're going to be learning. And again, back to the habits. If these things become habitual, you are armed and you are ready for this world we're entering. And I wish you guys all the best, all the best personal and professional success you guys could possibly have. So thanks for hanging out with me for the last 7 weeks, and I'll talk to you guys all real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Jamie.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
It's Jamie.